Welcome to Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show, where we discuss all things political, bringing you the top stories, locally, nationally, and from around the world. I'm Ruben Abati, and Thisdaylive begins now. I'd like to welcome today's panelists, Professor Bola Akintenuwa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos, and Professor Anthony Kila, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies. Well, it's a day of the professors. All of you are multilingual. In a Francophone panel, although we're going to conduct the business in English language.
We just said bonsoir,
which is the official language of the channel. Now, let's start with Nigeria. The federal government of Nigeria has rejected Nigeria's rating as the fourth most corrupt country in West Africa, based on the 2019 Corruption Perception Index compiled by the Transparency International, TI. In the latest rating, in which Nigeria ranked 146 out of 180 countries, TI again scored the President Muhammadu Buhari administration low, despite his commitment to fighting corruption. Nigeria scored 26 out of 100 points in the Corruption Perception Index 2019. Of the 19 countries in the West African sub-region, Nigeria was ranked the fourth most corrupt country, after Equatorial Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, and Cameroon. The Economic and Financial Crisis Commission, EFCC, also condemned the rating, describing it as appalling. It said Transparency International used bogus and ambiguous criteria to arrive at what it described as a jaundiced and illogical rating. Well, the truth of the matter is that since 2017, Nigeria had been rated 27 over 100 points. But this year, something different happened. But the explanation that has been given by some of the Nigerian non-governmental organizations involved in the rating of Nigeria, in the determination of the perception index, is that, look, this is not just about arresting people, putting them in jail. You know, statistics that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission try to provide to indicate progress in terms of arrest, prosecution, and conviction. But it also goes beyond that. It includes respect of the government for the rule of law, the government's definition of what constitutes corruption, and then, of course, I think a major factor was also political corruption, particularly the conduct of the 2019 general elections, in which there were reports of vote buying, ballot snatching, and complete impunity on the part of both the political class and the security agencies. So on the basis of what has been done by Transparency International, groups like SERAP, CISLAC, and other agencies have raised questions that the Nigerian government should advert its mind to. But what we've been hearing from government, either from the Attorney General of the Federation, or the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, or Garba Shehu, who speaks for the president, is that, look, what Transparency International has done is just an academic exercise, which should be disregarded. But on the other hand, critics of government have said this is the default position of government, the tendency to just dismiss any form of international assessment that is unfavorable. Prof, what do you think? But you are all professors. I mean, Professor Akintenuwa.
All right, thank you. If Shehu Garba described the result, the rating, as an academic exercise, I will still agree with him, but he didn't understand in this particular case what an academic exercise is all about. He was trying to say that, look, this thing was based on hearsay, based on perception, and therefore it's not logical, it's not tenable. And I have never seen in any academic setting, in any part of the world, where an academic exercise academic finding does not involve perception. It begins with perception, it ends with perception. And in this case, EFCC, the AGF, all those that were opposed to the rating, I want to believe that at the end of the day, they are missing the point completely. One, when you say that the rating was wrong because they have not put Nigeria in what they expect, all right, from the rating, they are assuming that they have done better than other countries of the world who might have been placed before Nigeria. It's an assumption that Nigeria had done better than others. There's nothing to suggest that they have done better.
That's an objective observation, you mean?
I'm even coming to that one. Yeah. South Africa, for instance. Why is South Africa before Nigeria? Why is the rating of South Africa quite better? Why is it better at the level of Rwanda?
Ghana.
Why is it better at the level of Ghana? Why is it Senegal? Even Senegal at the level of 105th position. So this is an unnecessary assumption that Nigeria had performed better than those countries. The second point is that worldwide, TI, Transparency International, is universally acknowledged, even though their rating might not be perfect. But the issue is that the perceptions are perceptions of experts. They carried out surveys. They also have what they call, the Global Corruption Barometer. Yeah. Now, which takes into account the viewpoints of Nigerians, organizations, NGO. They also have another instrument. I think it is the bribe payer index. Now looking at what companies do in terms of providing money for bribing, business done outside. So it is not just what the Nigerian government is doing. What Nigerian government is doing, the rationale behind the position of the government of Nigeria is prosecution, enforcement, nothing more than that.
And conviction.
So they thought that that corruption assessment of their efforts is just arresting, prosecuting, and convicting. Whereas, as you rightly pointed out, it is more than that. Access to information is part of it.
Compliance.
All right? Rule of law.
Rule of law.
Look, as at yesterday, there is the report in the Punch in many newspapers, where a student in Gateway Polytechnic in Abeokuta was arrested by the DSS simply because of criticizing President Muhammadu Buhari. And now a
gentleman called Babalola.
Babalola. Look at that one. So by the mere fact that you hold a different view, the mere fact that you refuse to engage in songs of praise at the level of President Muhammadu Buhari, then the DSS will now be running after. This is a student journalist. Okay. So please.
Professor Akinterewa, let me take Professor Kila, who has been itching to say something. Professor Ariola, just be on standby. I'll also take your views on this. Yes, Professor Kila?
You see, I think this situation is a very shoddy Nigerian situation. I think two things. One, it's a shoddy Nigerian situation because what is going on is that the government is coming out. Like those students who, when you don't give them a pass mark, they say, but I studied a lot. So they're looking at their efforts. They're not looking at the results. They're not looking at the objective output. They think, because I've done A, B, C, X, Y, Z, but you are reading the wrong curriculum. And it's a sad thing in Nigeria that we're used to putting emphasis on effort rather than result. And that is where that expression we say, oh, the person has tried. Oh, that governor tried. It's not about trying. It's about succeeding in whatever you're doing. It's about success. Now, that is the first issue, the issue of method. The other issue is the issue of competence. Every government, especially a government like Nigerian government, knows that every year there will be a report of the Transparency International, just like every other report, the IMF report. Why don't we wake up one year, the day after this one, and say, next year, we're going to make sure we improve. How do we do that? Mr. EFCC, Mr. Anti-Corruption Body, get a team together, look at the 20 things that Transparency International is looking at, like a curriculum, and tick all those boxes. You see, because contrary to what the government spokesman is saying, it is called Transparency International, not only because it drives transparency, but also because it's transparent. The criteria they use, the variables they use to judge, are there for everybody to see. They don't make it up as they go along. Precisely. They don't change it. So a good government, and this is about good governance, this is about strategy management. They should just sit down and say, next year, your target, group of 5 people, your target is that we want to move from point 140 to point 2 figures to 80. We want to really grow up. What do we need to do? Look at the 12 things or the 20 things that Transparency International is looking at and bring us policies to make sure that is done. They haven't done that, and they're crying foul. In fairness, I must say, and this must be said, that from the viewpoint of the people in government, they think they're doing a lot. And I've been saying this to everybody in this administration. It's not about your effort. It's not about how you think. It's about how people feel it. You can't say you've improved the amount of electricity when people are still paying for petrol and diesel for their generators.
So it's about issue, process, and outcomes.
And outcomes.
Your point is clear. But let me take Professor Ariole.
No, before Professor Ariole, you raised this good point.
Yes.
That probably government feels is doing good, trying. No, that one is very debatable.
That they're even doing good.
Because you go to the record. Take the last 10 years.
Yes.
What's her position? Yeah. It has been between 136, 144, yes. 148.
Yes.
Well, I think the point they were not seeing also is people who enter Nigeria. The entry point.
Yes, how do you feel?
It's even okay to know that bribery still persists in Nigeria, if we are going to look at it from the point of view of bribery. Coming from the airport, coming from the border. Unfortunately, whether Equatorial Guinea, whether Cameroon, whether the other one that is Central African Republic, they're all bordering Nigeria somehow. And people come in from there and go out from there. So in effect, if you have to, I'm telling you, it has become the axis of evil. You know, when it comes to corruption. Because from water, you enter Nigeria through Equatorial Guinea. From land, you enter Nigeria through Cameroon. What do you call Central African Republic is not too far from whatever you call Nigeria. And these are areas, you see, they are watching how people enter and go out. And if you say global financial transparency is supposed to play its own role in knowing how corrupt Nigeria is, the world is watching. They know how much Nigeria is making and the leakages that go out of Nigeria. Whether we like it or not, they know it. They have the records. So whether EFCCO, ICPCO, those are internal rumbling that we call will storm in the kettle teapot. It's not really affecting exactly how governance is being well carried out in Nigeria. Well, so we should look at those things. You know?
Well, gentlemen, the point is whether perception is actually reality. Yeah. But whatever it is, whatever the truth is, what we know is that what has been said by Transparency International is a wake-up call for Nigeria. And it's not just about government. It's also about the community. It's about the private sector. It's about the people. It's about access to institutions and centers of power and influence, and how that is assessed in a corrupt manner. But we'll take a short break now here on Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show. When we return, the conversation will continue. Don't go away. Welcome back to Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show, here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akinterewa, Director General, Bolitech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos, and Professor Anthony Killer, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies. Now, before we went on break, we were talking about something of great concern to Nigerians. And Professor Ariole, I don't know whether you want to conclude your thoughts.
No, seriously, see, we cannot compare ourselves with ourselves, for sure. When you look at other people around, for example, we have Gabon in that Central African Republic, where people like Equatorial Guinea are mentioned, Cameroon, and we know Gabon is performing equitably okay in terms of being seen as a place where people can operate without too much worry about corruption. And
no, but the concern of the Nigerian government is that a lot has been done under this administration in terms of the ease of doing business.
Yeah, the ease of doing business.
In terms of the prioritization by the Buhari administration of the war against corruption.
Yeah.
And the administration has also consistently said that, look, the government makes the effort, but corruption also fights back.
Yes.
So these are the issues.
No, will it be said that there is no corruption in Ghana? There is corruption in Ghana, and there is people are going there for investment purposes, and they have even seen it as a better destination for investment than Nigeria. Why should it be so?
Prof, before we move on to the next topic, what do you think of the allegation by government spokespersons that this is being orchestrated by the opposition?
No, as an academic,
that is the opposition.
No.
That is behind it.
What opposition?
They insist that there are some elements in Nigeria, some influential figures in Nigeria, who are close to Transparency International and who are behind this wrong
They have mentioned the names.
perception.
We know them, what they are saying. These are people who supported them to come to power also. Are they saying that the lady who they are mentioning did not support them to come to power when he was carrying placard against Jonathan in terms of what is happening in there? Or are they saying the former president they mentioned also did not support them to come to power? So where are we? It's still people trying to keep you on your toes so that you perform for the betterment of the whole Nigeria. So even if they are assuming that that is what it is, these people are worried. They are still in Nigeria. They did not run away from Nigeria. And they want Nigeria to be better than we know it.
Okay, so I guess there is a consensus that the war against corruption, on it, there's still a lot that can be done.
A lot that can be done.
And that should be done
Yes.
by the government of the day.
Yes.
And
the
that it is...
representative in Nigeria
Yes.
has challenged the government to come out, all right, and justify and show how the factors considered had been wrong. They asked one question, that the Attorney General now in the past 4 or 5 years had not even prosecuted anyone, and that those under prosecution, he frustrated them. They gave a number of cases.
Well, that may not be factual, because we have had cases of thousands of
But
convictions
again, see, rule of law is very important in
prosecutions.
this issue also.
Yes, well, we have made
Very
that
important,
clear.
you
So
know.
it's not always that the outsider is right, Professor Akintayo.
We are not saying the outsider is always right. The issue is now that they made their case crystal clear.
Yeah, but we can
Beyond that,
interrogate that. The fact that they said something does not mean that we take it hook, line, and sinker because of our own partisan bias.
Yes.
But let's move on.
Let's move on.
Still in Nigeria, the federal government and governors of states in the southwest have reached the agreement to draw up a legal framework for the Western Nigeria Security Network, codenamed Amotekun. This was disclosed at the end of a meeting Vice President Yemi Osinbajo had with the 6 governors of the Western region on Thursday. Governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu SAN, says the legal framework will help resolve all burning issues surrounding the proposed security network. While the meeting was ongoing, Malami had insisted, that is, the Attorney General of the Federation, that the outfit was illegal. The speakers of houses of assembly in the geopolitical zone rallied behind it, pledging to give it legislative approval and come up with the necessary legal framework. Now, I'll start with you, Professor Anthony Killer. Yes. For one reason, you are the war commander for a major community in the Southwest region. So I believe that you are privy to all of this. being the Balogun of Igede Ekiti, right? And the Balogun is the war commander. That's your traditional title. But you sit here as a professor. You know. So what is this that your people want, you know, and what do you think has played out? You know, the politics of it, the ethnicization of it, and the final resolution that has been arrived at.
Well, I think very quickly, we must start from the fact that Amotekun, as it's called, this operation, is a response to threats of life, land, and property, and to the inadequate response of those charged to do so. And leave it simple without any conspiracy theory, to know that those charged to do so, i.e. the police force, the intelligence community, are not capable because they're understaffed, ill-equipped, and overwhelmed. And the threat has been there for 3 or 4 years, and the people were disorientated. This response, in which is a response of a civil force, of civilians coming together as security people, vigilantes, or whatever you want to call them, to gather intelligence and to work in collaboration and in a complementary mode with the existing authorities, the loyal existing authority. It's important and it's good, I say, for 2 reasons. Number one is because for security reasons and for democratic reasons. Security reasons because it is a response to threats, and nobody can secure your life, land, and property better than you. And everybody knows that. And because the people charged to do it are not adequately or capable of doing it, people have gone to help themselves. Just the same way we employ security megad, as it's called in our local parlance, or we buy generator when the light is not enough, or we go to private schools when the state school is not good enough for us. It's the same Nigerian problem that's been addressed here. We should be thankful for Amotekun because it could have been individual raising arms or some kind of uncoordinated effort. But this effort has come together in an orderly way, and the plan is for it to be supervised, and it's coming through the state governors. That's a fantastic thing. The democratic side of it is that, unlike most other things in Nigeria, this is a bottom-up approach. The reason why those governors went out to do this is because they were pushed, they were forced, they were screamed at to do something about security in the western states of Nigeria. And I can assure you, and here being Balogun comes into play, I can tell you authoritatively that for a long time they didn't want to. They were hoping that the federal government would do. They were hoping to rely on the police. The reason why they did so because their people kept on telling them, you need to do something. And it's a good thing that they've done. So they've responded to the call of the people. Now, the dynamics, the national politics, there's a fear that a regional part of the country is arming up himself. I think that's exaggeration. But what still was sort of the haphazard reaction of the AGF that just came by fiat to say this is illegal. I mean, you know, one is for to say, who do you think you're talking to? That they could not do internal memo. They had no way of working with those governors before they launched it to work with them. But as they say, all is well that ends well. Because now they've had a meeting, and you know, without any desire to fight anybody or to score any points, let's just leave it as all is well that has ended well. Because now they've gone to the federal level and they said, go to your state level and legitimize it. And that is fine.
Professor Ariole, let me come to you now. I mean, you are not from the Southwest.
Yeah, but
you live in the Southwest.
Yeah, so I'm concerned, seriously.
You are a stakeholder.
I'm a stakeholder. The point is, you see, people tend to forget what happened during Biafran period, according to them, the security implication. Federal government was not responding to its duties in terms of what was in the exclusive list, and so on and so forth. My worry is, you know, all the state governors go to security meeting. That's federal security meeting. I'm very sure they go to and they sit with the president. I'm only wondering whether we are still in military rule, where they will sit with the president and it seems what he says will be, yes, we have agreed and we just move on. Yeah. This is very, very discomforting and very, very unacceptable. Yeah. So what is happening in Southwest is an eye-opener for others. I expect it to be an extension of neighborhood watch. Yeah. Neighborhood watch in the sense that other states closer to Southwest should also be involved, because when it's touching your own friend, gradually it can get to you.
To the other side.
So you had better do something now before it's too late to get into the fold of securing your area. As we can see, the federal government is not, every now and then, a leader comes and says, we assure you there is not going to be problem, we assure you you are going, we have had it almost 100 times since, I mean, are we going to continue this way?
No, we can't.
But do you take what has happened in the Southwest as a comment on the performance of the federal government in securing lives and properties in Nigeria?
Yes, definitely everybody has seen it now that there is a problem. Security of life in Southwest is in danger. Haven't seen some great people.
Only the Southwest?
No, what I'm saying, why they have now decided to initiate this Amotekun's program means that they are foreseeing war situation that need to be stopped now. Like somebody said, the best defense is attack. That's what I hear from some strategists, you know, that the best defense is to attack. And so they have to show sign that federal government, even when we don't have the arms and everything, we are attacking you to act. And if federal government is not acting to an extent, they will still provide themselves some limited defense that is required to
places
get
like
their
Taraba coming out.
You know?
Okay, well, I have listened to both of you, but I want to reserve Professor Akintenewa's intervention for, you know, later when we return. Because Professor Akintenewa, as you know, is also a major community leader.
Absolutely.
Where he comes from in the southwestern part of the country. He's the son of the past immediate Iyaloja, the leader of market women in his community.
Another fighting
And
group,
so,
you know?
and he wanted to be local government chairman. So he has a special interest in this Amotekun phenomenon in the southwestern part of Nigeria. So, Prof, just hold your fire. We'll return shortly. We'll take a short break now on Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show. When we return, we'll discuss further the Amotekun operation in the Southwest and other subjects. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akintenewa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos, and Professor Anthony Kila, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies, also here in Lagos. Now, before we went on break, we were talking about the Western Nigeria Security Network, Operation Amotekun. Now, Professor Akintenewa, I wanted your own input into the discussion. You've been the son of, you know, a leader of market women, now late, God bless her memory, and you in your own capacity, a community leader where you come from in the Southwest. So is this a community-based response to the security challenge in Nigeria, or this is just an elitist political 2023 election-directed initiative on the part of the governors of the Southwest and political leaders or godfathers in the Southwest?
I think it's community response. First, I do agree with the submission of Professor Kila and Professor Ariole. Professor Ariole, because von Clausewitz has theorized that if you want peace, prepare for war. So in this case, it's just like the Bismarckian aggressive defensive strategy. Professor Kila is quite right by saying that, look, the Southwest has been faced with many threats and actual attacks. And in this case, since he used the word inadequate to describe a government's action, no, it's not a question of inadequacy. The people of the Southwest, the communities in the Southwest, believe that the government is not prepared, all right, to deal with the matter. It's as simple as that. In fact, in their thinking, from a discussion, as I always tell you, I travel in public transports, I challenge drivers, I discuss with them to find out. Their thinking is that, look, the federal government truly, in their thinking, supports Fulanization. From the time Chief Olusegun Obasanjo drew attention that there might be an agenda of Fulanization, the thinking of the people in Southwest is that, okay, if the daughter of a Fasorati, a leader, could be killed, and then the prosecution and all those things wouldn't have any head or tail, and you have herdsmen always troubling and forcefully taking land, and the government is not seen to be taking, concrete action. Then it went into their cerebrum that, look, truly, people are now, these herdsmen are coming to impose themselves. That's what actually drove these, the people to compel their governors. It's not that the governors themselves want this Amotekun. They are only compelled. The people now complain to them. In my community, for instance, the point was made clear to the Oba to say, look, we've been living with all these herdsmen here. We don't have any problem with them. But that if force will not be used, okay, to compel them to release their land, their own farmlands, they will not be prepared for that. That's the issue. So to prevent unnecessary war, another Biafra, that's why this operation Amotekun was put in place. So it is an instrument that has the potential now to bring about the consideration for a true federal system. Look at the coalition of northern groups. They now have Operation Shege Farah.
They are forming such.
Shege Kafasa. Shege Kafasa. So which means that already it's impacting.
Is whether the attempt to resort to self-help by states and regions will not have implications for national unity, for national cohesiveness, for national unity.
The country.
Well, let's hope that will be the long-term thing, and that there will be complementarity, there will be collaboration, and that there will be a special focus, correct focus on the security of every Nigerian and everyone living within the territory that is known as Nigerian. Let's go international. China. China has expanded drastic travel restrictions to contain a viral contagion that President Xi Jinping said posed a grave threat as the death toll reached 56 and Shanghai reported its first fatality. China has locked down the worst-hit province of Hubei in the country's center in a massive quarantine affecting tens of millions of people to slow down the spread of a respiratory illness known as the coronavirus that has infected almost 2,000 persons. The virus has also spread around the world, with cases confirmed in around a dozen other countries as distant as France, Australia, and the United States. Authorities have also started to curtail travel in other parts of the country. And in Nigeria, the increasing cases of Lassa fever reported across the country, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has activated a National Emergency Operations Center to coordinate the response activities. Since the beginning of the year, Nigeria has been expressing a sporadic increase in the number of Lassa fever cases and deaths. Between January 1st and 24th, a total of 195 confirmed cases were reported from 11 states in the country, leading to 29 deaths. This figure is expected to rise as more states have reported cases of the disease. So we have before us internationally and locally a public health emergency, public health crisis. Internationally, you have the coronavirus, or what is called the novel coronavirus 2019, because it falls into the family of existing known coronaviruses, but it's new. So it's not been given a new name yet, but it's causing havoc around the world. The Chinese have had to shut down, to quarantine up to about 24 million people in the Hubei province. Cases have been reported in Macau, in Japan, in New Zealand, in the United States. Even the British authorities are taking precautions. But I think the good news is that either with regard to the global pandemic, although WHO has not declared it as such yet, or Lassa fever in Nigeria, the Nigerian authorities, the Federal Aviation Authority, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, and even the federal government, have all together issued different kinds of alerts to advise Nigerians on the precautions that they need to take. And for people who come down with fever, coughing, respiratory challenges, to take precautions and to submit themselves. China and Nigeria have very good relationship. Many of the Chinese working in Nigeria must have gone home for the Lunar New Year.
And they are coming back.
And they are coming back. So we just hope that the Nigerian authorities will keep to their promise that there will be very rigorous checks, at the various ports of entry. But who do I start with? Let me start with you, Professor Kila.
Well, I think it's a good thing that we see agencies doing things straight away. It's another thing to see the efficiency of what they're doing, but it's a good thing to see that they're doing. One thing that should be said, and here I make an appeal, not a critique, to anybody that is in charge of treating these affairs, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. The protocols are there. The international protocols are there. The adopted protocols are there in Nigeria. We just need to do what is the right thing and to inform people more. That's a very crucial thing. If people know what they need to do, then we can save a lot of lives. Just for thinking purposes, you consider the population of China, you consider what they're dealing with, and you see the extent to which they've gone. You quarantine 2 million people.
Commended by the World Health Organization.
And it just shows
the quality
you
of response.
the quality of response. And this is crucial for students learning and new staff and people of goodwill who want to improve Nigeria. That it is not enough to just say we're too much, or it's the population, or it's what we don't have. It's human factor. It's about sitting there and having a plan. Look at the protocol, look at how it has been done in the past, how it's been done in another country, see what you have, and make the best of it.
To buttress your point, the Chinese authorities haven't seen that hospital facilities are overstretched. Yes. They are trying to build an extra facility, quarantine facility, in 10 days.
In 10 days, straight away.
That's seriousness.
That is seriousness. That is knowing commitment.
That's proactive.
And understanding the gravity of what is going on.
Proactive.
Professor Ariole, quickly.
We have had, within 6 days, they built a 1,000 bed space hospital. Can you imagine that, how proactive they have been? And here we are, as the biggest country in Africa in terms of numbers. And when you go to the airport, almost for every 100 person you see in the airport, you will have an image of about 20 Chinese person around there, which means we are also involved in making sure that our own population is not decimated by this coronavirus. And we have to do something.
We have just less than 2 minutes, Professor Akintenwa. Do you think the Nigerian authorities are really serious about the advice that they have given and the assurances that they have given?
Well, they gave the assurances. There's no reason why we shouldn't believe that they will be serious. But I think the problem should not be limited to investigating, looking at the Chinese or other foreigners. Why? These foreigners, these Chinese that are coming back home, they take the same aircraft with other Nigerians. They are there. And since this particular coronavirus is said to be contagious,
even by sheer breathing.
Exactly. Sheer breathing. So that means that whoever is returning
from that place,
all right, might have been infected as a result of contact and so on and so forth. So the challenge for the government of Nigeria to be serious must to subject every returning foreigner, Nigerian, or Chinese, or non-Nigerians, all right, to rigorous checking. And you pointed it out. I think by that one, if the government can do that, seriousness of purpose can be given to their declaration.
But do you think that the WHO should revise its position? Because since the meeting on Wednesday and the declaration by WHO on Thursday, we've seen reports of more acute cases, either from China or elsewhere.
I will agree with you. As at the time the World Health Organization said, well, they couldn't declare it as an emergency. Now, the impact was not as it is today. Now, since they could now see that the Chinese government itself said, look, warning the whole world that it has greater potential implications, I think the World Health Organization should be on the safe side.
On
declaring it.
On that note, we'll take another short break here on Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akintenewa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos, and Professor Anthony Kila, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies, also here in Lagos. Now, I think we've made some substantial progress, and then we should take another subject, which is also of both international and local interest. It's been reported that President Donald Trump may expand his controversial travel ban with an announcement on Monday, which will mark the 3-year anniversary of the original order, which targeted several majority Muslim nations. The list of countries is not yet final and could be changed. The nations under consideration for new restrictions include Nigeria, Belarus, Myanmar, Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Sudan, and Tanzania. A draft being considered by the Trump administration will place immigration restrictions on the additional 7 countries, but not necessarily completely ban all citizens of those nations from entering the United States. The restrictions could apply only to certain government officials, for instance, or certain types of visas. Nonetheless, any new restrictions are likely to strain ties with the affected countries, some of which assist the United States on issues like fighting terrorism, and some of which Washington has been trying to court for strategic reasons. The United States also said it will no longer issue visas to foreigners who want to give birth in the country. The White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham said the rule change is necessary to enhance public safety and the integrity of the immigration system. What we know is that this proposed immigration restriction by the United States will be the 3rd since 2017. Immigration being a major plank of the Trump administration's engagement with Americans, with the voters, with the conservative base, to be specific. And in this particular case, Nigeria has been named alongside other countries that I mentioned. And the excuse, as has been given by President Trump, particularly at the World Economic Forum in Davos, that this is to ensure the integrity of the immigration system in the United States, to check, terrorism, and to ensure public safety. In a statement issued by Stephanie Grisham, we have been told that the category of visas that will be affected will include B1, B2 tourism visas, and particularly birth tourism will be checked, because automatically in the United States, once you give birth in the United States, you become a citizen. And many Nigerians like to go to the US to be delivered of babies so that they can have American babies. So, Prof, what's the option for us? We stay in our country and give birth here, or we do reciprocal action, since that is at the heart of diplomacy. We stop Americans too from coming here. Can we do that?
I like your question. I like it because, the principle of reciprocity is largely defined by capacity and capability. So you cannot reciprocate when you don't have the means. Right. If the U.S. has more power, more means to impose its decision, and you, the recipient, the victim, you are not able, to be at par with the U.S., look, reciprocity wouldn't mean anything. You see, nationality generally in international law and relations distinguishes between the principle of ius sanguinis and ius solis. Ius sanguinis, that is blood descent. Then ius soli, place of birth. Now, in 2016, before Donald Trump was to be elected, he made it clear that he will crack down, on immigration. And he believes strongly that foreigners constitute a major problem. People coming in. And he has a phobia for some Islamic states. So the first 7 countries put on the list were basically countries from which he believes terrorists, were coming. Right. So in this case, if you are asking me at the level of Nigeria's relationship with the U.S., Nigeria is not a terrorist country. Certainly not. We are anti-terrorist country.
But we have been told we have Boko Haram, we have the Islamic movement of Nigeria, the Shiites, and the ISWAP has a major base in Nigeria.
The meaning of a terrorist country is quite different from what you are telling me. A terrorist country is one which that consciously engages, supporting, aiding, and abetting. All right. When terrorism. We talk about, yes, terrorism.
But like everything Nigerian, I'll just say this and go on. Like everything Nigerian, there's a difference between the state Nigeria and what is going on inside the country. The state Nigeria might not be a terrorist country, but the country Nigeria has inside it gems of terrorist group. I'll let you go on.
No, I wouldn't disagree with you on that, at least from one perspective. The issue is that, look, in Nigeria, we have terrorists.
Yes.
All right? But the terrorists are not necessarily aided and abetted by the people or by the government of Nigeria. Nigeria is just a terra cognita for such activities. That's why Nigeria actually pleaded with the U.S. not to sanction Nigeria and not to see Nigeria as a terrorist country. You see, the issue in this case, with this position of Donald Trump can be right, especially the decision is consistent with his policy.
But Professor Ariole, isn't this just election season rhetoric?
Well,
at best?
2020 is already at hand for Donald Trump, and it's part of what helped him to get to his position. And if he starts now, getting it into the minds of his supporters, they will continue to support him to get the 2020 bid to be re-elected.
If he's not removed.
No, see, the impeachment process, we know is not too much a serious issue according to what we have been seeing. But my problem is, you see, when you start beheading Christians in Nigeria, it's something to be... Yes, they have everywhere where you have Christians, especially United States, with Donald Trump that has declared himself a pro-life person and a Christian president anyway.
They cringe.
So he will be disturbed. But that in an open scene, you call a human being and you behead a human being, and the president, pressman, is saying beheading is better than bombing. I mean, these are statements that are not supposed to come from an
Professor Killer, is the assessment of Nigeria fair? Either by, persons complaining in-house or by President Trump or, the Americans themselves, because there are terrorists everywhere. It's a global phenomenon. If the Americans want to be fair, then President Trump will ban everybody from all over the world from coming to the U.S.
Very good.
So why are we being stigmatized?
That is
why
very good.
Is Nigeria and a few other countries being singled out?
Yes, and that's the point. And that is the call for the elite of Nigeria and the rest of this country. We are being stigmatized, we're being treated as kids because we are poor and weak. Nigerians report themselves. Anytime there's a crisis, APC has done it, PDP has done it, they call the international community, acting like baby. We do not have the infrastructure. We're not rich. We're poor. The best of us are like mendicants in tuxedos. The richest Nigerian is a poor man in the rest of the world.
I hope there's nobody wearing tuxedos.
Provocateur is wearing not a red tie, he's wearing a bow tie. Now, the point here is that the elite needs to wake up in Nigeria. They are going out. We need to think about it, really. The best people can give their children is the citizenship of another country. The best they can give them is to give back abroad.
I think what we can take away is the fact that Nigeria is not a terrorist country.
No, it's not.
It's not a terrorist state.
We are not a country of terrorists.
Yes, we are not a country of terrorists.
Who constitute an exception to the rule, they are a minority.
They are a minority.
I mean, Nigerians are among the best set of immigrants in the United States.
That we know.
The largest number of persons with PhDs, you know, in very important positions within the American system.
Contributing
and who are
effectively.
contributing significantly
Not only in the
to
United
epistemology.
States, but in many other
and elsewhere
countries.
in the world.
Yes.
And elsewhere in the
But
world.
in any case, they should allow women to have babies wherever they want to.
I'll
do
bring
so. You've been watching Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From our entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week.